what I roll it down to is the teams that I lead, I like to make sure that we're having fun. Right? People that are having a good time want to work more, want to work harder, want to work with the person next to them. And there's almost a fun competition to getting things out. So there's a drive and a push to how things work. The second thing would be trust, in making sure that you have a level of trust with the people next to you, that you're accountable to things. If you say you're going to get something done, get something done. Without that, the fun level starts to go down and starts to affect things. So you have to have that level. And then really allowing people to make mistakes is a huge one. We're all moving in new territory. This technology is moving so fast at this point that it's really hard to be an expert in something that came out yesterday. So knowing that you can make a mistake, that it's fine, that someone has your back, that you can keep rolling forward, and that the other people that you trust next to you and are having fun with are also learning and pushing forward is how you kind of need to build a team for this.
Today, my guest is Danny Luoma. Danny is currently Senior Engineering Manager at Vanilla, the world's first estate advisory platform. Previously, he spent over 10 years at DocuSign, rising from software engineer to director of software engineering, scaling in-house administration systems to over 1 million customers. In our conversation, we talk about building effective teams, feedback on growth and leadership, specialists versus generalist engineers, cloud optimization at different organizations, difference between autonomy and automation, and last but not the least at all, AI adoption in engineering teams. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it in your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It means you won't miss future episodes. With that, I bring you Danny Luoma. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Future of Cloud Optimization. Here with me, I have Danny Luoma, Senior Engineering Manager at Vanilla. Welcome, Danny, to the show. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Danny, before I get started with the technical question, I'll start with this. This is a true fun fact, right? You were an electrical engineer when you started your career, and you hated coding. And here you are. How come this happened?
I think like a lot of people in the engineering profession, I started taking things apart on my own and coding on my own and figuring things out. When I got to college, I had a minor in computer science, and I just didn't care for the subject matter that we're going back and forth across. Writing the sort algorithms, going that deep into the code, it was not interesting to me. Also at that time, Java, the Java compiler that we were using, would just explode and say that there was an error somewhere in the 1,500 lines. And to me, it was extremely frustrating. It wasn't at all what I wanted to do from a career standpoint. Fast forward quite a few years, and I had an opportunity to join the software engineering field. First job, I was out of a job at the time, so I thought I would take a shot. And working in the industry was so much different than being in school and learning those type of things. Industry, the actual real world application and the logic and the things that you could do building an application was fascinating to me. Again, I still didn't like the writing the bubble sort algorithms and those type of things, but it turns out like when you get to the right framework, you type .sort and that stuff is handed for you. So I ended up that way. It's been fantastic though. I loved it ever since.
In fact, I am quite the opposite. I really like algorithms. I do not really like writing a lot of code. So that's where I generally enjoy working. Okay, let's get back to the topic. I know you work with very, very large enterprises like DocuSign and others, right? Now you're working with relatively a smaller enterprise. And people always look at cloud optimization as a thing that's very different there and extremely different here. What is your opinion on that? How do you optimize in both enterprises?
A couple of things, I guess. With the larger enterprises, typically you have more data. So there's differences from cost in how you move that data. And I think probably just as interesting as the size of the company you're in would be how old the code base is. Right? Like some of the larger companies have had more time to build up, have more tech debt, have more things that they need to do, and they didn't start on cloud. They started before cloud was really an option. So the migration plan that you have to go through to get to a cloud-based system is much more difficult. When you're with a newer code base, a newer company, a smaller company, they have less code, they have less tech debt, they have less storage, and it's easier to either you are already in cloud from the beginning because that's the way modern apps are developed, or it's much easier to get to the cloud. So that's kind of where I ended up landing on what I like about the smaller companies. Again, you don't have to go through the migration path. You don't have to move 40 years worth of data to the cloud. It's there natively.
So it's more about the maturity of the platform itself or the tech debt that you have versus the size exactly of the company.
I think so. The size of the company helps a little bit from a resourcing standpoint. You have people who are hopefully experts in cloud migration, cloud storage, deploying the cloud. It can help you move there easier. It's a longer ramp to get to the cloud for the older organizations.
You have a framework for building productive teams, right? That means really they should not be scared of a technological change, especially AI coming in. People think that it's going to take their jobs. So let me ask you that question. How do you make sure your team is comfortable embracing new things?
I think for me, it's kind of hard to have a framework for a team and building a team. Roughly, yes, but I feel like every situation you walk into is slightly different. I mean, there's obviously different people that you're working with. There's different scenarios. There's different problems. But what I roll it down to is the teams that I lead. I like to make sure that we're having fun. Right, people that are having a good time want to work more, want to work harder, want to work with the person next to them, and there's almost a fun competition to getting things out. So there's a drive and a push to how things work. The second thing would be trust, in making sure that you have a level of trust with the people next to you, that you're accountable to things. If you say you're going to get something done, get something done. Without that, the fun level starts to go down and starts to affect things. So you have to have that level. And then really allowing people to make mistakes is a huge one. We're all moving in new territory. This technology is moving so fast at this point that it's really hard to be an expert in something that came out yesterday. So knowing that you can make a mistake, that it's fine, that someone has your back, that you can keep rolling forward, and that the other people that you trust next to you and are having fun with are also learning and pushing forward is how you kind of need to build a team for this.
Now, one thing I generally struggle with is generalists. When you're looking at technology today, your opinion is building more generalists than specialists, or everybody has to up level there. How do you put that into practice, or how do you see that being implemented in practice?
The specialist versus generalist thing, I think, to me, it came a lot with the cloud migration and moving there. Originally when I started software engineering, you had people that focused on the front end, people that focused on the back end. You had a deployment team, maybe some release managers. There were people that dealt with all these different pieces, your database storage team. And as you migrated to the cloud, that was more just an engineering task, right? Like it became more test-driven development by developers. You don't necessarily have a QA team anymore. The DevOps team starts to kind of go away because developers are deploying their own code. Database storage, same thing. People are running migration scripts. And so in some ways, it's good from a resourcing standpoint. Looking from a business standpoint, it's obviously a massive cost savings to move in that direction. You have engineers that can run everything. The problem that I think we run into a little bit is you lose a little bit of that specialist, somebody that is really, really good at designing APIs, or somebody that's made a career out of testing features and making sure that things work and all the edge cases are there. I think as people become more generalists, you start to round off those edges and maybe lose some of that specialist.
So now let me draw your attention to this autonomy and automation area, right? So there are, in my mind, three types of work, right? One is truly autonomous with AI. The second is really automation with the help of like automation, people and automation. And the third is really manual. And how do you classify this? What will you put in the first bucket? Nothing should be manual. Yes. And the second would be what can be automated and what can be autonomous.
What type of tasks I would put in there, or what type of...
Yeah, cloud optimization. So let's say cloud management tasks, not even optimization, just all management.
The automated stuff, I mean, if we're cutting out any of the ramp time to get there and those type of things, the things that I would really like to see automated would be, the deployments, getting that so it's hands off from a development standpoint. And, in that point, there's testing, making sure the tests pass before you move on to the next one. And really, we're a long ways there already. It would be the alerting, the alarms, how we handle things. And right now, I think there is very good alerting in place, being able to figure out what's an anomaly, what needs to be looked at, finding patterns of problems that are out there and alerting somebody that this problem needs to be dealt with. That part, I think, has come a long way, but I would like to see it go a little bit further. Those are the tasks that really where it's got to now, the problem is already halfway solved when you get in, and there's a little bit of a trust issue on going back and double checking what is being done. But if that was fully automated, that would be absolutely fantastic. The other one that I would really like to see is ticket intake prioritization in moving, right? There's typically companies have a triage bucket or something that comes in where tickets come in from a customer, you're not really sure where it belongs within the company, what the priority is. Does it need to be fixed in 1 day, 7 days, 30 days? If we could figure out a way to automate that and take that manual process out, that program management, that would be a fantastic way to do that. So I think that's my fully automated bucket, was really deployments, alerting, and tickets and dealing with tickets. The assisted bucket, I like engineers, code writing in that bucket. Just going through your day-to-day, writing features, figuring stuff out. And again, there's a lot of organizations that are kind of in this bucket now. Copilot is out there, Claude. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do this where it's really replaced the Stack Overflows in that aspect. From you can ask a question, you can get an answer back. Here's the code that you should be using. And that to me is extremely useful. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword on that standpoint, though. No worse than it was before, right? Because you end up with the developers that ask the question, copy the code out, and dump it directly into the code base without understanding what it does or checking what it does. And I think long-term that creates problems, but it's just a reality for now. In fully manual tasks where we don't have any help, honestly, I'm not sure I really have anything right now in that bucket. Leadership, maybe? Just product management is going to be, it would be great to see it in there, but when you think about like creating a product, what does customers want? Like it'll get there, but I think right now that is a manual task. And then I'm not sure if you could automate culture, right? And having fun and like bringing the type of environment that you want to work in. I think that one will continue to be a manual operation.
That's a great example. I never thought about that could be an example of a non-automated, but that's a good one. So if you look at it, it's probably already an intelligent task. So that's why it cannot be automated or made autonomous. That's in my mind that task is, right? You have to adapt to certain things to be a good leader. It's an acquired skill. Bringing back to autonomy again, if you look at most of the tasks that engineers do today, you're right. So Copilot is a great way to start. So generally what I tell my engineers is when you start off coding, if you're starting from scratch, probably you're not putting all AI into good use. You probably can get most of it done and then come in and do stuff. So autonomy, generally we take it to the next level where decisioning can be done by the system, right? Meaning those have to be discrete tasks, like driving a car. Taking a left and right can be done extremely well by machines, even compared to humans. But that's quite boring because that's exactly the task. But for creative tasks, I don't think autonomous or AI can work there, right? So when you classify these, what I've seen working for large companies or enterprises is the things that you can see you have to ask them continuously are the ones that can be made autonomous, that people generally do not like doing. Clean up, scaling down, looking at your cost, the right sizing, all those are discrete tasks that humans don't like or hate. So that generally are the candidates for autonomous systems is our philosophy. Do you agree to that?
It's interesting. That's a good way to put it. With it's the mundane tasks that I think that's kind of the exciting part about it now. But I agree with that the task, editing the YAML files to be the same across all these various environments, the scaling up, like you said, where are things at? Are you running up servers? This needs to go up. And then, do you pull the trigger versus cost performance? Where are you at on that standpoint? I mean, it's on the one side, but even the mundane tasks come down a level to the application level, the feature flags and things like that. That's a constant fight in every organization for these are stale, right? This is checked. It's been in the same spot for 60 days. What do we do with that? And I think I agree that those things could be automated and should be automated. I mean, it would make everybody's job much better.
And this is where we generally come in and say, yes, these can be automated. We will take it to the next level and say this can be autonomous, meaning you don't even have to automate. A system will learn and automate for you. So you can focus on your creative tasks. For instance, if there's an auto scaling rule, this autonomous system can take control of an auto scaling rule and configure it for you, almost like a copilot.
So When you talk about the creative tasks, just to go into that a bit, the things I think of are like your user experience, the design on the front end, things like that. Product requirements, where you have the idea and like as you move more towards autonomous, the development gets easier. But as long as there's really good user stories and stuff like that in place that can actually tell you what code to write, those are those the creative tasks you're talking about, or are there other things in that
Yes.
bucket?
Yes. Those are the creative tasks that I'm talking about. Even writing code is hard. Writing the basic framework for to start coding is easy, but now fine tuning is extremely hard. I don't think it's even solvable at this point.
The frameworks, the spinning up the scaffolding has gotten really, really good at this point to automating that, right? Like I need to create a new React app that talks through GraphQL to, whatever layer you have. And it does a very good job of spinning those up. The question I have about that though is I struggle with this just a little bit from the standpoint of by the time you come in and like you said, the difficult part of cleaning that up, there's always some aspect of taking over somebody else's code where do you fully trust what's in there before you? And do you have to go back, look through and familiarize yourself with everything they put in place? Or do you trust what's there and just start coding on top of it? Again, I think it's something that'll change with time as there becomes more trust in what's put out there. Where me, I'm too new to some of the automated things that I don't yet have that level of, sure, this is going to be good. Let me just take what's here. Is that something you run into as well?
Yes, that is something that I run into too. I don't have an answer there either. Okay, so I'm also on the same boat as you. I don't have a clear answer there, but what I've seen is when you can deliver those better than, or two things. One, the task has to be boring or risky enough. Second, no, seriously, if you were to make something autonomous, people will happily give you their boring task. They'll be happily giving you that. But you have to have the energy to look for those things and make things autonomous, right? And the second thing is, now if you're doing it, it has to be better than humans. Nobody wants to give away something because you can do it as good a job. If you can do a better job, then yes, people would respect, right? That's how an autonomous system generally work, right? You have to do a better job. It's not like taking their jobs away. It's finding things that you do not enjoy doing.
The monotonous and the mundane tasks, the over and over and over.
Exactly.
This breaks in production. Here's your steps to do it. And here's the manual run book you do. Like those are things that people are glad to have off their plate. I agree.
Exactly. So we generally call it a pyramid of work. The top ones are really the good ones or the creative tasks, the intelligent tasks. And the lower ones are really the mundane ones. And those are the ones you can automate and make like 80% of the tasks a lot easier. Now, embracing AI, back to the team again. I know that everybody is now scared of it. I know you must be pushing your team also to start adopting it. Now, what are the things that you found super easy to adopt in your engineering world? Super easy to adopt, super hard to adopt. And for some of these things, you don't even see value in adopting.
From an AI task, what they can get done with, I found the code helps a lot. Really, the stuff that I found really useful is pulling models and building UMLs across like a code base, defining the files that you want involved. Can you explain what this does to me? Those pieces have been extremely helpful so far. I haven't worked in like a really good automated system yet for like an alerting standpoint, but that's where, we're looking for now. The other thing that I think would be great from an automated standpoint, but to get the AI ML involved is document searching. Every organization tends to have a set of documents that are spread across multiple repositories from years of growth, right? Like you maybe have Google Drive, you have an old SharePoint, you have things in Confluence, you have things in Slack, and those are difficult to look across. But if there was a way to feed those into a centralized system where we could look across it, that would be a huge win for us. I think everybody I've worked with would benefit from that. So when we're talking about going back, I guess I'm off a little bit there from an automation standpoint. Think about the automating stuff that I want to see come short term that I really like is the alerts. To me, it's just one of those things. Alerts get dumped out. You have various different things, Ops Genie, PagerDuty, things that will go ahead and give you an alert, call your on-call person, when in reality, a lot of those things could just be dealt with. They're common cases we've seen before. You have a run book in place for it. The alert pops up. Whoever's on call looks at it, triages it real quick, takes 3 manual steps and they're done. Those things I would love to go away in the very, very short term. That's just a no-brainer. Again, we talked earlier about scaling up, scaling down. Those are the type of things that, like, if you can adjust and have the ability to say, I want to prioritize cost, I want to prioritize performance, depending on what your sector is and where you're at. Those are the things with some little dials and knobs, right? Like, set me up in a system that cost is no issue right now. We have to be a performance system for whatever it happens to be. That's the automation that I think we see a really, really big win in the short term. The stuff that I don't want to touch, I don't know if there's a whole lot that I don't think that I would at least try to automate or try to get AI into. There's a little bit of me that thinks about the narrowing job market for engineers. It's not there yet. I haven't come across anything yet that says, like, hey, I can replace engineers with any automation. And so I'm not really thinking of that yet. But I do like to see the engineers that I work with be much more effective because they have tools and they have things that they can do and things in place and things where it used to take you a week to scaffold out your project, run and compile and figure out why you were missing something, what file you're missing, what you didn't set up correctly. Like, the ability to do that and POC something really fast is absolutely fantastic.
I can give you an example of something that I don't like AI to be handling outside of work. Is really kids' homework. I do not know, these kids are really smart and they know how to get it done. So that's something that I would probably say, you know what, you should keep that away for the next 5 years so kids focus. Should they focus on that is another question. Okay. Coming back to computer science again, work. On cloud, when you deploy at scale, especially in DocuSign and other companies, right? When especially at scale, so I don't think this problem happens in normal or non-scalable or not at scale environments, it's small environments. So at scale, when you have a system, when you automate things and you see things fail, trialing takes a lot of time, right? As you rightly mentioned, there could be alerts and there could be run books that can help fix. Where I found value when I was at PayPal is really deploying a system that can look at some of these things and autonomously manage it, right? As you rightly mentioned, if you see a problem, yes, clearly this is a solution. Just do it if you're super confident. Have you deployed such a system in any of these previous companies, and what was your experience on that?
No, never really gotten to an automated point where I thought we were comfortable enough with that, especially up to a production system. I've worked with systems that are automated to a point that you can make the decision to roll forward or not, based on a set of metrics that you've helped define, or like preset number of errors.
Yeah.
You see this error all the time, you choose to ignore that one. But I haven't seen it really go that, which is interesting because going all the way back, manually shipping things, where you used to hand somebody in ops a thumb drive to go run the bits over to a server. It's one of those things they talk about, right? I mean, it's your classic scenario of dark flighting. You push it out, you have your canaries, you figure out whether or not things are on fire, but customers never see that and you roll forward or back. That's something that should be automated. I just have never had the pleasure of working in a system like that.
Got it. Now, when it comes to canaries, right? Do you use it for features, generally feature flags, or you use it for even production testing? When you go out, first you deploy it on a canary and see what's happening and then deploy elsewhere?
Feature flags. Push the feature, make sure it's out there, turn a feature flag on for an internal customer, an internal account or something like that, so you can start measuring back and forth and make sure that the two paths are the same, and then decide to ramp it up for everybody.
Now, the other thing that I want to bring clarity to generally people or the audience is they always think, what is the difference between automation and being autonomous? It's like another word for automation is how they think about it. And generally, when you have a rule that says, if this happens, do this, that is still automation, right? That's exactly what autoscaler works. Autoscaler is a classic automation example, right? Where autonomous is that rule is now defined by the system, is when things are autonomous, right? You use automation and you make sure that this autonomous system can drive this automation. Now, do you have such an example anywhere in your current system or in your DocuSign career?
Most of what we've dealt with has been like you're drawing a line between the automation part, right? Like you have a rule line and if else based on this configuration, what do you end up doing with this? So you're still defining the rules and where it comes out as, again, I don't know if I've been in a system that makes the decision for you, right? And even the stuff that's pitched as autonomous, I think doesn't have that definition that you're drawing on. You look at contracts and clauses and like, does this differ from the other ones? That's still a defined input. Again, I would love the opportunity. I just have not yet worked with something that is making the decisions on top of it for us.
Perfect. Now it's my learning now. So one thing I found it difficult is how to get this adoption of AI like heavily in a large enterprise, like without disruption. So generally, not for my company, but I've seen it with my customers. How do we get this wide adoption without a lot of pushback? What is the secret there? Do you have any secrets there?
Again, we touched a little bit earlier on having to deal with people trusting it. There needs to be enough examples out there, concrete examples for people to understand that this is something they actually want, right? Do they trust it? Is it going to make the right decisions? Because as soon as you start putting in there, it can be better than humans, but the one error it makes is going to that's what people will notice, right? So you need to, A, be able to trust it. Two, I think what comes along with the trust is transparency. If it's an autonomous system, it's making decisions for you. I think people naturally want to know how that decision was made. What inputs were there? What decision did you make? Why did you make that decision? Where did that come from? I think that needs to be something you can answer before I think people are really comfortable with it. I think the other thing that really comes into play here is the security and privacy around it, where, good, bad, or otherwise, I think some of the narrative that's out there right now driven is that if you give data, especially your data, your company data, your customer data, to an autonomous system, that it's going to end up out there for other autonomous systems to learn from. And I think in making sure that there's a really good story around that, how the system's learning, where it's learning, that the data doesn't get out of the system is a big hurdle to overcome, especially for the larger enterprise customers that have so much customer data that they want to protect. I mean, as soon as they let some data out, it's headlines. So they're rightfully a bit shy about that.
So let me take that answer as 3 steps. So one is explainability, making sure that yes, why you did what you did, make it super clear to my team, right? So if you're making a decision, tell us why you did what you did, right? The second aspect I'm thinking is like trust, making sure that you don't make wrong decisions. I get a call at night, right? So the trust. And the third is really making sure that yes, it is safe with me, and we both are going to coexist, right? So that's really the assurance that we both are not here. It's not a threat ever to me.
Honestly, what's interesting, maybe this is a bit of a cynical view, but like the privacy security thing comes up, and it's obviously forefront. People bring it up. I mean, that's a barrier to entry for any decision where customer data is. But realistically, when you look back on it, the selling point is kind of the fact that the autonomous system is probably going to be better than this, where you look at all of the old incidents that have happened that made headlines. There's some employee internally that has access to data they shouldn't have, that's pulling the data, that's leaking the data. These things are happening all the time. And it's not, right? That's pre-autonomous stuff. You still have to clear that hurdle, but those problems have existed since the start of software. And they have nothing to do with it. Arguably, it would get better with the autonomous piece because you take the human aspect out of it. But that's still, you have to sell.
Yeah, the security aspect, I missed that point. Thank you. Generally for the data, if the model is built in-house, let's say we deploy and it's a air-gapped environment, you take the data, you build a model, you don't share that model with anyone. Generally, our enterprise is okay with that. Is that a good definition of or does that qualify to be a secure system?
I think that gets into a secure system, you control it. I think that's typically what they look for. I mean, even, again, going back to the way enterprises have deployed software for a long time, they're on-prem, right? Like, I mean, even if you have a SaaS company, there's a lot of times that you're deploying on-prem for an enterprise customer because they want more control over their data and what they do with it. And so I think having an air-gapped system, something that they're in control of, eases that burden a little bit. From that standpoint, though, a question for you is like, do they end up setting themselves up in a certain area where they're not set up to win by having their own models air-gapped within? Like any improvements that are made outside at that point, they're not getting the advantage of, right? Don't they become stale internally?
Now, coming back to the team aspect of things, right? So right now in your company, in your team, what are the 5 things that you think are top 3 things as priority for you, like top priorities for you, like top 3?
Well, I'm brand new to this company, so ramping up on the product and getting involved in the product space is is tough. It's very hard for me coming from a technical engineering background to fit into a pure management role where I don't have that deep knowledge of the code base of the product. So ramping on the product is my top priority. Two, assessing and defining my team. And from a leadership standpoint, making sure I know who I have on my team, what they're capable of, where their strengths are, and where I can deploy people to be most effective is really key to me being successful. I guess you're as a leader, you're only as good as your team. So your team goes up, you go up. It's really a symbiotic relationship from that standpoint. The third thing is looking for wins. Any organization, any job that I've ever been in, you look for your wins. And I think now is an interesting time because as you talk, the automated pieces, the autonomous pieces, those opportunities are there. And so outside of even the job, learning and keeping up on this type of stuff, it's moving, right? This technology is moving, whether you're learning about it, keeping up or not. And I prefer to keep up and look for areas that I can take advantage of the new technology. How do I get this in? How do I take advantage of the things that are out there? So ultimately, my team and myself can be more effective.
Exactly. The top three things for anybody who is new. Excellent. Anything that you would want to share with the people who want to be like extremely effective leaders or build effective teams and make sure that things are done and aligned with the company? Anything that you would want to share?
For me, effective teams, again, we touched on this a bit earlier. I think the fun aspect, the trust aspect. The one thing I didn't talk about earlier was the transparency piece and just making sure that you are getting good feedback. Again, the trust and accountability, I think, feeds into that. If you're not giving good feedback to somebody who's not performing up to speed, it's going to be a problem down the line, right? You don't want to apply inside somebody with, here's your performance review, and it's not where you want. And the same thing, from the positive side, you want to be able to tell people they're doing a really good job, why they're doing a good job, and how they get to the next level. Because ultimately, your job, I think, as a leader, is to help the people that work with you become better at their jobs. You work with a bunch of engineers, you want them to be better engineers, and that's my goal.
Perfect. In fact, I have a thing that worked well for me. So always say, catch them when they do something good, not when they do something wrong. That probably helps. That helps the conversation with growing the team. So at least to me, that really helped. Okay. Thank you so much, Danny, for chatting with me. It was awesome fun. We learned a lot, especially with respect to how you can transition from being in that electrical engineering to really an awesome computer engineer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Suresh.